know I want her to be happy.
If she gets married next week, like this, none of my
nurtured.
Did you nurture those relationships? Because
I thought I was. I realized from the beginning, there was some affinity that I had for Robyn that was significant, and in my mind, I wanted to elevate.
You know what they say, get back on the saddle.
You know what? She tells me she's going to buy me boxes of, I'm not going to say this.
Of fun toys?
No, just, protection.
Okay.
Because she's like, I will buy you. I'm like, I don't need a bot for me. Nothing's happening.
You won't believe the tea we're spilling today. From secret breakups to shocking lies, this is Unreal Tea. Hit subscribe before the drama starts. Welcome, everyone. Sister Wives, the price of control, Robyn and Cody's secret takeover exposed. My definition of absolute hell? Seeing a family disintegrate on national television while one woman manipulates the chessboard, and the so-called patriarch throws tantrums like a toddler in crisis. Sister Wives has always been messy. But what if the chaos isn't just about plural marriage? What if it's strategy, control, and a virtual coup taking place in the eyes of millions? Robyn Brown is not misunderstood. She is not the soft-spoken, sweet underdog she pretends to be. She's white trash with a platinum credit card, pulling a legacy family down into shame one dollhouse at a time. And Cody? He's not a leader. He's a crumbling statue of male weakness, pumped full of ego and quite possibly more than a wee bit of protein powder. This is not reality TV anymore. It's psychological suspense with high stakes, emotional manipulation, and human beings so real. You can feel the betrayal burning through the screen. Today, we're pulling back the curtain. From Robyn's hick beginnings to her calculated ascent to power. From the erratic behavior of Cody to a family abandoned for fantasy's sake of control. Each instant holds a secret. Each smile holds a knife. This is the true story of how one wife took the throne, how a patriarch lost his crown, and how the family was destroyed by the burden of lies. If you think you know the story, think again. Because the truth? It's so much darker than we ever imagined. Now let's begin. Robyn Brown never needed to be misinterpreted. She built confusion like a masterpiece. While fans speculated and assumed what drove her, she mastered the art. But if Christine was polygamist royalty, then Robyn was its opposite, the embodiment of polygamist poverty beefed up with a budget increase. She came with fewer resources, less education, and a surface-level knowledge of how plural marriage really worked. But without legacy, she made up for it with manipulation. Dolls, daydreamers' diaries, fancy baubles. Robyn's shopping wasn't eccentric, it was deliberate. She wasn't purchasing, she was marketing. Her fashion screamed fabricated nostalgia wrapped in the pretense of down-home origins. But Robyn never was down home. Even her speech was betraying informality. Repeatedly used phrases like really, really stupid and it's just funny weren't sweet, they were calculated disarmament. A show of simplicity covering up something a lot more advanced, ambition. While Christine had taken her place magnanimously, Robyn burst into the family with entitlement. She dominated the conversation, insisted upon center stage, and often intruded in spots silence would have been better. Insults about her living on a compound in Wyoming or Montana fuel the stereotype of poverty, government housing, and homes just barely worthy of living. And yet she mocked Janelle's motorhome. I would never. That would be my definition of absolute hell. The hypocrisy was just so glaring. Her kids, raised in modest circumstances, now mocked the life they had lived. But that wasn't disdain. It was insecurity. The necessity to project prosperity and authority, to recreate the narrative and distance themselves from a past that still lingers. Robyn did not marry Cody. She gambled. Other wives walked their faith and their sacrifice. Robyn saw something different, a man who was struggling, a broken home, and the potential to recreate the rules. And she played the game perfectly. Even with stretch marks and excess weight, he managed to make romance living, Robyn would say. It was a compliment. It was not. It was a criticism. A reminder that the other wives allowed themselves to go downhill and stopped trying. Robyn didn't want Cody. She wanted to be superior to them all. And she claimed his midlife crisis for herself. Everything was changed after season 13. Cody's actions became unpredictable. Erratic. Manic. Bizarrely aggressive. His energy was untamed. Like a guy on something artificial. Not hard stuff, like steroids, testosterone, or whatever heightens confidence and reduces empathy. And Robyn? She had him right where she needed him. Cody spiraled behind the scenes. His melodramatic tantrums, his body obsession, even his peculiar flexing in a muddy lake, none of it seemed that of a man rooted in peace. Rumors from fans surrounding testosterone fluctuations. The timing was perfect. Robyn was struggling, and Cody was scrambling to stay in the picture. To stay wanted. But the real shift was made in the move to Flagstaff. Dayton, Robyn's son, happened to be accepted to college there. Cody, incidentally, fell in love with the town. The family, incidentally, relocated days before the beginning of the semester. And the other kids? Not their concern. Dayton's Asperger's created a need for him to have Robyn close by, Robyn says. Maybe. But if so, why relocate the entire family? Why not leave him to attend school by himself, like Hunter or Madison? Because Robyn wanted control. And Cody gave it to her. Children like Hunter sacrificed everything, their friends, and their future because a wife said, jump, and the self-appointed leader responded, how high? When pushed back on, Cody didn't stand up. He doubled down. I railroaded you, and I'm not sorry. That confrontation with Christine was terrifying. During a therapy session, Cody commandeered a symbolic rock tower exercise into a psychological attack. It wasn't about building bridges. It was about asserting power. And the therapist? There, holding a paper cup of tea. Christine wasn't having it. She'd raised all but one of the kids and kept the family financially afloat for decades, and now was being told her worth was in compliance with a system that no longer cared about her. And she left. Not quickly. Not stupidly. But with the measured precision of one who had already excused herself, inside, years ago. By the time she left the room, she'd already walked away inside. And Cody? He spoke angrily, not remorsefully. Because Christine didn't just walk out on him. She exposed him. And then there was the Vegas sale. For homes splashed onto the market at the same time. Cody said it was the best time. It wasn't. Those homes doubled in value afterwards. But he needed a narrative to account for the Flagstaff relocation. So he created one. A theatrical production, undefined promises, and a real estate failure that cost the family a lot. Why? Because Robyn wished to be near Dayton. And Cody wished to be near Robyn. It had nothing to do with the market. Nothing to do with family unity. It had everything to do with control. And the cycle didn't stop. In season 18, episode 3, Cody scolds Janelle for shutting down a family meeting. He blames her and the boys for ruined holidays. But he never attempted to communicate. He never called. He just waited for everyone to come to him. That is Cody's flaw. He thinks he is the sun, and everyone else has to orbit around him. When they do not, he pouts, complains, or blames. Janelle never made the boys say sorry. And that made her the villain. Robyn continued it. The boys were to come to Cody, not the other way around. The message was clear: submit or break up. It's not love. It's loyalty. And nothing illustrates that better than Cody's tantrum when Christine left. Not because he would miss her, but because she left without begging. Cody wanted to be chased. When no one chased, he fell apart. In the end, Sister Wives became uglier than a reality show. It became an exercise in narcissism, in emotional manipulation, in the slow, torturous breakdown of a family based on the pretense of togetherness. Robyn didn't just disrupt the balance. She revised its terms. And Cody? He let her. Because power was more valuable to him than peace. Control was more comforting than bonding. And the rest of the family footed the bill. And just as it looked as if the dust had finally settled, a new ripple emerged, one that had been simmering beneath the surface all along. Christine, long since out of the maelstrom, was suddenly summoned by an old friend who still orbited the Brown family sphere. That call wasn't merely to chat. It was a warning. Christine, the voice shook down the phone, you don't know the half of it. Robyn's been speaking with lawyers. Christine's fingers tightened around her phone. Lawyers? What lawyers? There was a hesitation. A breath. Then, inheritance. Property. She's trying to grab more than she should. She says it's for the kids, but no one believes that anymore. For Christine, it was déjà vu, a spooky recurrence of wars past. She knew Robyn had a gift for spinning a yarn, especially when things were emotional. But it was no longer drama alone. It was theft of legacy. Christine did not want back in but could not shut out the alarm. Meanwhile, Janelle, bereaved, alone, and now speculating on everyone's motives, sat in her little rental home. The home remained silent but for the wind racing past the window panes. She scrolled through messages gone by, messages from Garrison, from Cody, and from Christine, and a chill realization came over her. Who's left to believe? The family bloodline had chilled. The group messages were silent. Cody hadn't called after the funeral. Not a phone call. Not a word. Robyn, though, had sent one cryptic message: we all grieve differently. But don't let bitterness steal from the children of what's rightfully theirs. It hit me like a slap. Bitterness? Robyn, the woman who stayed loyal to Cody while the other wives were emotionally devastated, had the audacity to sermonize about sorrow? But the punch was yet to come. In the middle of the night, Meri posted a mysterious Instagram update, a photo of an old, dusty deed with the caption that read, "Some signatures are written in desperation, not agreement." The internet lost its mind. Observers picked apart each corner of that picture, and one Redditor overlaid the document style onto property transfer forms from Arizona's state online database. The result? Someone, perhaps Cody, perhaps Robyn, had tried to transfer land titles just days after Garrison died. Christine, Meri, and Janelle coordinated a private sit-down, one free of cameras, producers, and definitely free of Robyn. It took place at a middle ground, a friend's farmhouse in Flagstaff. They arrived with binders stacked with ancient receipts and electronic copies of agreements. Retribution wasn't the purpose. Preservation was. One simple thing, transparency. Back at Robyn and Cody's house, tensions were about to boil over into a volcanic eruption. Ariella posed a question that sliced deeper than anybody could have ever guessed. Why don't the other moms come over anymore? Stock still, Cody froze. Robyn was stunned. The child's naivety was harder to deal with than even the most aggressive tell-all interviewer. But the stunned silence that burst out upon Ariella's question said it all. Things weren't just broken, they had been actively dismantled. Robyn made a choice that night. She did a sit-down, one-on-one interview with a regional podcast that dealt in unvarnished, uncompromising family interviews. She wanted to set the record straight. But Christine, Janelle, and Meri stepped in front of her. A week before Robyn's premiere, the three women launched a collective blog, Truths We Never Got to Tell. The inaugural post was titled, The Financial Games Behind Coyote Pass. It was dated, documented, and contained verbatim quotes from legal emails exchanged between the Browns' former family accountant and Cody. What had been a whisper had become a roar. Robyn postponed her pod appearance. Cody did go public in a statement through his business advisor, saying he was surprised at the betrayal and sensationalizing of stories by women he trusted once. But the audience wasn't buying it anymore. One particular anonymous post by a former TLC crew member only generated bad vibes. It said, there were discussions regarding removing Christine from the show prior to when she left officially. Someone didn't want her to be heard. Guess who? Robyn's image was beginning to implode. Rushed. Meanwhile, Christine was basking in glory as the whistleblower, finally speaking out about years of coercive silence. Meri, finally empowered after years, then followed up with a live stream in which she read excerpts from an old journal, confirming dates and occurrences that corroborated fan rumors. Janelle? She sat motionless on a wooden bench in the garden, filming on her phone. No production, no lighting. Only raw words, I lost a son. And I nearly lost myself. But I won't lose the truth too. The tension built up silently and exploded like a volcano with no warning. Robyn's eyes were glassy, not just from crying, but from seeing the house of cards she'd spent so meticulously building come crashing down. Christine's voice, though level, was razor-sharp. You knew. Don't pretend otherwise. Cody moved uncomfortably, his jaw working. For once, he was not shouting and defending, he was merely quiet. There was a disquieting quietness, the kind that comes before the storm that will come. Robyn sought comfort from him, but the man who had so strenuously defended her had been lost to his own upheaval. Christine continued, you saw what was happening. You helped cause what happened. So don't sit here sobbing over a family you didn't try to save. That one moment on the tell-all was a wrecking ball. Viewers hit pause, rewound, and replayed. The internet spun out of control with theories. Had Christine just implied that Robyn was manipulating everything from behind the scenes? Wasn't Robyn a helpless victim but the ultimate master manipulator who had quietly pushed Cody away from his first wives? The floodgates opened. Christine, empowered by years of bottled-up facts, set her sights on Cody. And you rewrote history. Again and again and again. You lied to the cameras, to us, and most of all, to yourself. Her voice cracked a little, not from weakness, but from the emotional cost of finally speaking the treason she had endured aloud. Cody tried to cut in, but it was too late. The truth was already in the air. Robyn's carefully rehearsed makeup was dripping by the second. I tried, she grumbled. I really did try to connect. Christine's head tilted, stunned. Did you? Because, from where I was standing, it looked a whole lot like you waited for us to leave. The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the host, normally ready with a mediator's well-timed intervention, was speechless. Janelle reached out, placing a hand on Christine's knee, not to silence her, but to say, you're not alone. In that moment, the fractures in the Brown family weren't just visible, they were irreparable. Off-screen, producers scrambled. They hadn't expected this level of rawness. Cameras rolled silently, capturing every tear, every flinch, every ounce of unscripted truth. Meanwhile, fan forums and social media erupted with hashtags like hashtag Christine exposes Robyn and hashtag Cody caught lying. The crowd sensed that they had been vindicated, most had suspected Robyn's tacit authority all along. Now, Christine had affirmed what they had felt in their guts. But just when the dust had begun to settle, Meri's voice broke into the silence. I stayed too long, she said bluntly. And I kept silent too long. Her tone wasn't angry, it was resolute. For Meri, it was no longer about blaming. It was all about reclaiming the voice she had lost years ago. Cody's expression became stern. You had options, he told her. Meri responded, so did you. And you made the worst possible ones. Robyn whispered, nearly inaudible, why are you doing this to us? Christine glanced at her again. Because we gave you opportunities. We gave you years. But you never looked at us as your sisters. Just obstacles. This was not just drama, this was collapse. The walls of denial had come tumbling down, and in their place stood reality, honest, excruciating, unshakable reality. And watchers? They were hooked. Part 3 of the tell-all was trending before it even aired, with promos already breaking YouTube records for TLC. And yet, something deeper lingered in Christine's final words that night, we survived you. That's our story now. But what Christine did not realize, what none of them did, was that the final nail in the coffin had yet to be hammered in. Robyn still had one more secret to keep. And someone was about to let it spill. While Janelle stood silently by the window, watching rain slide down the pane like 1,000 tears, all of the unsaid words seemed to echo through her mind. Garrison's loss had produced a canyon between her and Cody that was too wide to bridge with polite conversation and dutiful family dinners. But it wasn't lost. It was betrayal. It was years of neglect. It was the understood sacrifices she'd made so Robyn could have her happily ever after. Christine had come that morning, her expression serious but her hug warm. He wouldn't want us to break up like this, Christine whispered, holding Janelle in a hug only someone who has known your pain can give. But even so, she knew Garrison's death didn't just break the family, it uncovered all the cracks that had been smoldering for so long. At the memorial, Cody stood in front, obviously shaken, holding a crumpled piece of paper that trembled in his hands. But when he stood to speak, his words rang insincere to Janelle. He was a light in our lives, Cody began, voice shaky. But it didn't seem like it was about him. It seemed rehearsed. Like he was pretending his grief, not feeling it. And then Meri stood up. Her abnormally calm voice carried the burden of reflection. Garrison went so far out of his way to try and please everyone. Even when he was hurting, he smiled. A soft communal gasp erupted from the crowd. This was the first time anyone had spoken that Garrison wasn't okay. Not actually. Not for a long time. Janelle couldn't keep it up anymore. She stepped forward, her eyes locking with Cody's. You weren't there when he needed you. None of your tears now can undo that. The air grew charged. Christine's hand came out to catch Janelle, but it was too late. The truth had escaped. And once it had, it couldn't be pushed back into hiding. Cody, stunned, gazed down at the paper he was clutching, his scripted words now irrelevant. I didn't know, he whispered. But everyone knew that wasn't okay. Not now. That evening, at the house, Christine, Janelle, and Meri sat in the kitchen. The room was electric. Finally, Meri spoke. I read the messages, she said flatly. The ones Garrison sent, Robyn. Begging. And she didn't reply. Never. Christine clenched her jaw. And yet she sits there crying as if she lost her own son. When she was not even able to respond to him. It was cruel. Bare. Real. And Janelle was no longer able to hold back crying. He begged her, she whispered. He begged her to get Cody to talk to him. And she ignored him. The camera would next shift to Robyn at home. By herself. Clutching a necklace that Garrison had given her years ago, before everything went wrong. She wept, yet the quiet around her had changed. It was not peaceful. It was judgmental. Flashbacks swamped her, texts were never read, birthdays were forgotten, and calls were hung up on. A trail of neglect that had led to sorrow. Janelle looked out into the night again, knowing that Garrison's loss would never leave her. But so would the deception. And just as the family thought that the shocking news had reached its peak, a hidden voicemail resurfaced. One Garrison had left for Cody just weeks before. A last plea. Dad, if you ever care enough to call back? I just want to know why. Why don't I matter anymore? It disappeared into static. And within the static were all of Cody's secrets he tried to hide. Christine's hand drifted into Janelle's again. We'll make sure the world hears him, she whispered. And they would. because silence had already cost too much. The morning following the confrontation brooded above the family, a dense cloud of tension like a curse no one had the courage to violate. Cody's silence was now venom, his boisterous, charismatic self from days past now weighed like a storm about to be unleashed. He stood on the porch of his leased Flagstaff home, cradling a coffee cup as a lifeline, looking out at the distant Coyote Pass land. The same land that had once been a beacon of union now looked like a battlefield. All the trees and every patch of ground vibrated with the ghosts of arguing, broken promises, and deteriorated dreams. Robyn paced around in there, her anxiety not concealed. Her children had felt the shift in her mood. Daylight struggled to penetrate the blinds, but an oppressive cloud of fear hovered in the air. Aurora informed Brianna that something was going to go awry, and Solomon even inquired as to why Daddy wasn't singing at breakfast anymore. Robyn did her best to keep her cool, but the lies she'd made up had started to fall apart. Her jewelry business had collapsed in front of the cameras, and fans were now wondering whether she ever did love the family or merely her own image. Christine was, however, in Utah, standing in the kitchen where she was making Truly's lunch. But she was not focusing on the sandwich. Her eyes were scanning her phone, rereading a text message from a producer. New footage came in. It's awful. Cody knew more than he confessed. Her heart fell. How much more deceit had they not known about so far? She looked up as David walked in, noticing the expression of concern at her pale face. What is it? He asked quietly. She passed him the phone. He scanned the message and set the phone down gently. They will never stop until all the lies are uncovered. In Flagstaff, Meri opened an envelope with no return address. Inside was a stack of printed screenshots, ancient messages, timestamps, and one horrifying photo, Cody kissing Robyn in front of a courthouse, months prior to Meri and Cody even having announced that they were broken up. She fell to the ground. This wasn't a broken marriage. This was a long-planned betrayal. Meanwhile, at Coyote Pass, at the exact same moment, Janelle was sitting in front of the package that was rightfully hers. She stepped out of the car, boots crunching on gravel. She had in her hand the latest land appraisal records, and it was clear Robyn's parcel had been overvalued and hers underappreciated. She gritted her jaw. So this is how it ends, she grumbled. They're still trying to cheat me, even after all of this. The family meeting had been postponed. Not by vote, Cody sent it in a text. Last discussion regarding Coyote Pass. All must come through. The text was detached and cold, like a court notice. Christine didn't want to go. Janelle thought about not showing up. Meri had no idea. But the promise of closure, or chaos, called to them. That night, they sat together again. Same room. Same tense air of distrust. This time Suki also attended, cameras operating. Cody did not linger. I've spoken to a lawyer. We're splitting the land based on who invested most recently. Meri's eyes grew wide. You mean Robyn? Janelle sprang from her seat. This is robbery. Christine pulled out her phone, scrolled through text messages, and pressed to play an audio recording, Cody's own words, from a year ago, promising equal splits. Muttering. Suki looked dazed. Cody, that's your voice. Can you explain what happened? Robyn cut in, things changed. We're the only ones still committed to this family. Family? Christine snapped. Or inheritance. The scene faded with Cody leaving once more, but Suki remained behind. Cody, are you scared that the truth will finally cost you everything? He was still for a moment. He just kept walking. The fallout from Meri's confession didn't end in that dimly lit living room. Like a ripple in stagnant water, it spread quickly, arousing echoes in the farthest recesses of the Brown family. What followed next was nothing short of emotional ruin. Cody, shaken visibly all the same, ran to Robyn's residence, but peace was not to be found. Robyn, pale and subdued, sat on the edge of the sofa as Cody strode back and forth across the hardwood floor. You knew something, didn't you? Don't lie to me, he growled, his voice strained with accusation. Robyn blinked, pain sparking in her eyes. I knew. But I didn't want to think it, she panted. I thought maybe you and she would make it work. I didn't know she'd blow it. But Cody didn't concern himself with sympathy, he concerned himself with control. He concerned himself with answers. And most of all, he concerned himself with knowing how much damage had been done. Because with Meri's truth now hanging in the air like smoke after a fire, every fragile thread he had used to hold the family together was unraveling. Back in Utah, Christine had already heard the news. Her phone buzzed nonstop as friends, producers, and even distant family members forwarded clips of Meri's breakdown. Sitting in her kitchen with David sitting next to her, she stared at the screen, justified but upset. Do you feel a sense of relief? David asked gently, his hand brushing against hers. Christine's eyes welled up. It's not winning, David. It's just surviving. She finally said it out loud. She finally stopped protecting him. Christine was not alone in noticing a change. Janelle sat in silence with a cup of tea, watching Meri's raw confession play on repeat. For so long, they had all carried their individual pain like bricks in a backpack. But this was the voice above one of them finally laying it out. Janelle's voice cracked when she spoke to her daughter. Savannah, honey, I think it's time we talk. All of this junk. Meanwhile, the producers of TLC scrambled wildly. What was meant to be a tearful reunion segment had now turned into a volatile powder keg of bombs. The director leaned over to his assistant and whispered urgently, "Do we air this as is? Or do we trim some of it?" The executive producer's reaction was swift. "We aired it. Unedited. This is what the public has been waiting to see. The truth." The final hours of that week came with a chill more biting than the mountain winds that howled through Flagstaff. While the family once more pretended that all was normal on social media, behind closed doors the fissures widened like vast canyons between each of the Browns. And Robyn, silent as she remained, became increasingly isolated with every new revelation. Janelle sat on her back porch, a journal open across her knees, staring at a blank page. Her hand trembled as she tried to write something, anything, but the words refused to flow. She could only remember Garrison. His not being there was an empty chasm. She could still remember his face when he had told her he could no longer live. Through the chronic dysfunction, tears welling in his eyes while begging her to finally leave for good. As he was now gone, his request haunted her daily. Christine and David had driven up from Utah to see Janelle. The two women sat quietly at first, the quiet between them full of the warmth of shared pain. Then, as the stars started to light the evening sky above the Arizona night, Christine quietly said, "You know we're never going to get the apology that we deserve. Not him. Not her." Janelle nodded. "I do. But we have to live. For us. For our children." Inside Robyn's home, the atmosphere had turned cold. Cody was pacing again, his classic storm brewing just behind his reluctant nods of peace. He'd made a phone call to Meri. She wouldn't answer. He'd sent a text to Janelle. Nothing back. Even Christine had blocked his number. And when Aurora and Brianna called him out over dinner, asking him if he was going to make it right, Cody lost his cool, not at them, but at the circumstance. His pride couldn't take the isolation. "They're rewriting history," he bellowed. "I gave everything to that family. And now they're depicting me as this sort of villain." But even Robyn wasn't jumping to his defense this time. She just sat looking down at her plate, prodding the food on it with a fork she had no plans on using. The cracks were beginning in their so-called strong marriage as well. In a surprise move, Meri finally spoke out, not through a TLC clip or Instagram statement, but through a live interview with a small podcast well known for its raw and uncensored opinions. In it, Meri was calm but candid. She penned decades of emotional abuse, the guilt over being the first legal wife to allow it to happen, and her realization that loyalty to dysfunction is still dysfunction. Her quote went viral, "You can't fix something that was never built on truth." One sentence rocked the Sister Wives world. Forums erupted with news. Reddit forums blew up. Even the mainstream media covered it. Suddenly the story Cody had attempted to force through during the tell-alls was breaking down faster than he could build it back up. And then the most devastating blow of all, a leaked court document suggesting that Janelle was requesting retroactive child support based on charges of financial abandonment of several of her children, especially. For the years Cody and Robyn were indulging in designer handbags and clothes while she could hardly afford pencil boxes and school supplies. Cody was enraged. "They're making it into a war," he bellowed during an off-the-record phone conversation to an unknown TLC producer. But the producer, ostensibly tired of Cody's antics, retorted, "You started the war, Cody. You just didn't realize everyone would fight back." The final blow, Robyn's last stand and Cody's falling empire with the family saga near its final episode. The emotional current swells into a maelstrom. The camera fixes on Robyn, who was once shielded by Cody's adamant loyalty and is now being grilled at the focal point of outrage. Her defenses, clam-like silence, vapid excuses, and tears, are cracking as one by one of the truths she has tried to hide are thrust into the light. Christine's tone is one of indignation as she reveals the inequality of feelings. It was never plural marriage to them, it was control. Her statements cut deep, especially when she describes the inequality of how Robyn was protected and cared for, yet the other wives were to endure in pain. Christine's betrayal is not about Cody's favoritism, it's about the slow erosion of her own worth in a marriage with an ever-present favorite queen. Janelle, whose calm demeanor has always been steadfast, now trembles, not from weakness, but suppressed anger. She describes how Robyn altered everything. There was a time that we were a family. And then Robyn arrived, and the rules were broken. And when I spoke up about it, I was the enemy. Most publicly loyal to date, Meri breaks the final unspoken rule. She does not come to Robyn's defense. Rather, she confirms what many felt. I was the distraction. Robyn was the destination. Even the children begin to make their voices heard. Gabriel's pre-recorded interview sends chills down the viewers' spines as he whispers, "I tried calling him on my birthday. He never called back." The lines are simple, but the silence that follows is agonizing. The Brown family wound is no longer theoretical, it's transgenerational. Cody's attitude turns dark. From boisterous and conceited to now defensive and nearly paranoid. "I gave everything to this family. They left me." But his complaints sound hollow. Even Suki teases him more than ever, asking, "Couldn't it be that you were more dedicated to one relationship than to the others?" He stutters, his carefully rehearsed answers fragmenting. Robyn does at last speak, but what comes out is far from clarity. She weeps, not for harm done, but for the destruction of the fantasy. "I just wanted peace. I just wanted us all to be happy." But never could there be peace where power was unequal. Christine piles it on with icy composure, "We aren't coming back. And neither are your kids. This was your legacy, Cody. And you chose one wife over all of us. That was your undoing." The camera pans out. Empty chairs. Once full of laughter, love, and conflict, now symbols of what could have been. The tell-all does not end on a note of closure but on a note of responsibility. As the credits fade away, we see glimpses of the women post-Brown family. Christine giggling with David in a cozy living room. Janelle walking through a farmer's market with the grandkids. Meri greeting a retreat at her B&B, a smile that is finally authentic. And Robyn? A figure behind drawn curtains. The Brown Empire has crumbled, not in a bang, but in the truth now revealed. This family's drama is far from over, so smash like if you're #TeamWives, subscribe for the next explosive update, and drop a comment below. Who do you think will win? Stay shady, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next scandal. Kiss mark Behind TLC Sister Wives out.